It's a very high-speed circuit, and of course he's clearing the green flag. Now let's wait for the start of the race here at the Salzburgring. Okay, red lights up in the left-hand corner of the picture. Within 5 seconds, and it's green, who is doing well. Oh, look, there it is, Peter Cox pulling across. He seems to have outdone. Fantastic start by Peter Cox. You can see which car he is by the yellow mirrors. He's edge Pirro out to the right. Okay, we're in car now. Whoa, it looks as though there's a bit of action there. And it is one of the Audis. It's number 5. Audi number 5, Pirro, is out of the race already. And as the others file past, they'll be very keen not to get too much debris onto their tyres. So unless I'm mistaken, it's Peter Cox in the lead. What a fantastic start by Peter. There comes the Ford, the Audis. It does cause an upset when you go out on the first lap. Pirro was saying he's had 3 poles and he's never won a race, and he was really hoping to do a little bit better than that. Oh, look, that's very good. Ford trying to edge its way up. A lot of places can be made up at the beginning of a race, purely because you have the ability, everyone is very close. Emmanuel will not be a happy man as the pace cars, the emergency cars come to clear the circuit. And it looks like a BMW battle at the front there. You can see there is number 14, Peter Cox, in the lead. Right behind him, I believe, is Cecotto, followed by Alfred Hager. A BMW 123 at the moment. Pulling through the circuit. It is a very important circuit to get a tow on here. By tow, I mean that you sit behind another car and you actually get a slipstream and it sucks you into the back of the other car. Yes, no, it's Alfred Hager in second place. As they come up now, they're going to be under yellow flags as they go past the incident. In racing terms, that means keep at race pace, be very aware of the incident being cleared, but no overtaking until you see the green flag. Manuel being led off there, he'll automatically go to the medical centre for a quick checkup, but he looks, if he's walking, he'll probably be talking quite volatilely later as well. The Audis followed by 2 Fords. Oh, locking up brakes there. Peter was locking up brakes in qualifying quite a lot. Very easy to get in balance. Oh, and Alfred goes through. Excellent shot from the in-car cameras. He got a tow coming out of that corner there. Pulled into the lead. As you can see, getting very close behind someone does have some advantages in that you get a tow, but of course the disadvantage is that you have to really dictate your pace by what's happening ahead. And that can mean when it comes to braking, your efficiency can be a bit compromised. Alfred Hager's taken the lead as we very wisely look out the front, which is I'm sure what he's doing. Heading up into the very fast right-hander. A lot of extensive tyre wear here. This is where they don't want to overcook their tyres. As you see, they're braking in late into the corner. It's the second gear corner. Right now they're changing to third. Accelerating out, letting the cars run wide. Back down to second. It's a little chicane here. Up into third, right in the middle of it now. Excellent. You see he's keeping a very tight line from Hager. Just trying not to leave any gaps for someone to come by. There they are, they're cleaning the debris from the track on the left. Does look like the Ford has crept up quite cleverly on the BMWs. Whilst they're fighting, having a dice, trying to dictate who can go into the lead, it does give other cars the opportunity to catch up. Oh, one of the Audis was in the pits. Didn't get a catch of who that was, but you do not need to in 2-litre touring car racing. You have to come into the pits. No chance of winning from there. So BMW, Hager, going through. Excellent. Johnny Cecotto is one of the most experienced drivers probably in this series right now and has an awful lot of reason to want to win every race he can. And here we look at the start. You can see Pirro was pushed across as one of the BMWs. It literally just caught the back of his car. He spun round, and he's very lucky not to have been collected by anyone else. As I say that, he takes out another car, but he could have taken out an awful lot more. So there we have it. Alfred Hager is hardly what you call extending his lead, but he's certainly making sure that, locking up the brakes there, making sure that he's not giving anyone else an opportunity to get by. This is the pace in the race when you actually start to back off rather from the ultimate qualifying pace. You can't do it too much because obviously otherwise you'll get overtaken, but you do have to back off enough that you can hope to make your tyres last. You basically have to settle into what we call race pace. Relax in the term that you're not going to overcook your tyres. Remember, BMWs are all rear-wheel drive, looking out the back of the car. So on lap 4, we have Hager leading Cecotto from Peter Cox. Locking up the tyres. That is not the ideal thing to do. It's obviously very hard to avoid because you're braking as late as you can, running the cars as wide as you can. But of course, every time you do that, in fact, you are overheating the tyre. And what that will mean is later on, the rubber will go off, which is when it obviously loses its maximum grip potential, and you do have to drop your pace. So sometimes he who is a little bit more conservative in the opening couple of laps will have the opportunity to catch back up tenth by tenth during the race. Very, very close behind for Cecotto there. He's going to make sure he's trying to set himself up, I think, for an overtaking situation. There seems to be smoke coming out of the back of Peter Cox's car. Not a very good sign this early in the race. Obviously, perhaps on a downshift or something, he over-revved it. These engines are very sensitive, 2-litre engines. They rev pretty high, but you can't over-rev them at the start. Coming through, kicking up dust, followed by Österreich in the Ford, and then Nissan in 5th place. So BMW is proving that they are the match at the moment. No Audis up there. That is certainly a big disappointment for the Audi crew, who had really proved that they had the pace here at Salzburgring. He couldn't get any closer. Cecotto is filling Alfred Hager's mirrors. That is the worst thing. You're sitting there in the lead. Your head is going rattling from side to side as though you were playing tennis. Of course, this is the fastest part of the circuit, going up to 6th gear. Actually, you can't see it on the camera, but it does have quite an incline there. Positioning himself very well, coming down into perhaps one of the only overtaking spots on the circuit. And I don't think you could, in fact, so much as get a piece of paper between them there. And he's pulling alongside. That was beautifully done. He used the toe to his best advantage, goes down the inside, slightly offline, which means he's going to have to be very aware under braking. Hager says, none of that, I'm going to have a go at overtaking you back, but it doesn't work. I think we're going to find Cecotto putting in some very steady laps from now on. He has the experience to be able to carry on a position, monopolize on his position in the lead, and if he can just pull away a tenth every lap, he will be able to consolidate his position and of course then take the pressure off himself. So the running order is Cecotto, Hager, Cox, Österreich, Bartel, Boutsen. Oh dear. Talking obviously to one of the drivers that was taking out. The most depressing thing for any racing driver is when you've had the build-up over a 2-day weekend, you've qualified well, you've worked hard, and then you obviously are out before the race even has a chance to get going. And we see the start again. There is Pirro had a very bad start, pulled to the left, of course chopped up in front of another car, which spun him off into the barriers on the right, on the left of the circuit, obviously, as they're racing. And then he literally, with momentum, span back across the track. Not the way to go racing. 2-litre touring car racing is fast gaining a reputation as the fastest emerging form of motorsport in Europe today. And its influence and its attraction is extending all across the world, as Asia are looking at a championship for this year. The reason is, of course, as the fans of you watching out there now, if you own a BMW or you like BMWs, you'll be rooting for a car that you can quite visibly recognize. Whereas if you drive a Ford or an Audi, you can actually support cars that you can relate to. You can imagine what it must be like to drive. And that is the appeal for manufacturers and the appeal for drivers. Okay, as they come back down onto the start line. Once again, it is just Cecotto, Hager from Cox, from Österreich, from Bartel, and from Boutsen a little further back. Well, on that, we'll take a break. Welcome back to the Salzburgring as we join Johnny Cecotto, who has extended his lead here in the 6th round of the championship. He's pulled ahead by perhaps a second and a half now over Alfred Hager, and that is exactly what he would have been setting out to do. Once you can get this, you can actually get into a good pace. As a driver, you can start to find your own rhythm, which means you become consistent, you become less aggressive with the car, and of course then you start to conserve all the important things such as tyres and brakes. And this is a very hard circuit on both of those. Very enthusiastic Audi supporters. Unfortunately, they don't have too many people to shout for right now at the front of the field. but that does not deter the very enthusiastic German and Austrian crowd. There it is, the gap between Cecotto and Hager is 1.33 seconds, and we're looking inside Hager's car at the back of Johnny's. When you're in car with these drivers, it gives you an impression a lot better than perhaps the average spectator used to have before, of the speeds and the proximity of this type of racing. When you're in the car, remember that they don't have the advantage of the overhead camera view like this, and they can see exactly where the rest of the field is. You can literally only see what's going on behind you, which means you have not such a good impression of distance behind, and so therefore it's quite difficult to judge how you should pace yourself. And as we watch Michael Bartels in the Nissan Primera, this car going excellently. Bartels is right now lying in 5th place. He's a little behind the leaders, but this is 2-litre touring car racing, and as I said earlier, if you've abused your brakes and tyres in the opening few laps, and of course we're only actually on lap 7 right now, it means that you can pull back and catch up the leaders as this race pace develops. Now here we are, we're looking forward at the back of the BMW little grouping at the front. This is going into the second gear, well, it's very fast, into a second gear corner, accelerating away, braking in very late now. You see locking up brakes in front of you, big cloud of smoke covering the car behind. Here we are, Osterreich sitting there, not too happy to be lying in 4th place, I'm sure, but you can see by the lines he's taking right out on the grass. He must be trying very hard in order to catch up. Let's talk a little bit about Peter Cox. Peter has done very well throughout his single-seater championship career. He won 2 victories in the German Formula 3 Championship. A year later he finished 3rd in the British Formula 2 Championship, and in 1993 he won the Dutch Touring Car Championship. And this is his first outing in the 2-litre category for the BMW team. And I think he certainly woke up a few of the old veterans when he came straight in and picked 3rd place on the grid. So I'm very pleased for Peter, because it's always an important thing when you get an opportunity to make the most of it, and I think he's certainly made people sit up and realize that a lot of people with single-seater backgrounds can do very well in touring cars. There we are again, looking at the grid. Nothing much has changed. It's Johnny Cecotto from Alfred Hager, from Peter Cox, from Markus Osterreich in 4th place. Now the Ford, if you notice, is starting bit by bit to catch Peter Cox up. That's exactly what he'll want to do. He'll start to probably want to make his move now, because if you only lose so much as a second to the car in front of you, you have to really go some in the latter stage of the races to make that place back up. And that is not desirable with any form of racing. Better to try and get most of your work done when you have the opportunity. Okay, as we're looking forward, the Ford is slowly coming. Oh, and a Nissan pulling very, very wide there. That is the Nissan of Ivan Capelli. He's on the grass, but he has enough car control and experience to pull that back one onto the track. He won't be very happy with that, because as you can see, he's lost a few places. Much as you try to immediately join the circuit and pull back your position, of course you've lost momentum, means that whoever was behind you just nipped straight past. I imagine he probably braked too late, maybe had a bit of brake fade, got onto the marbles, the bad rubber at the edge of the circuit, and just went off. But thankfully he's still in the race. Okay, as Johnny Cecotto starts his 10th lap on the circuit, he's starting to get into a very nice rhythm here. This, of course, is the penalty, if you like, that racing of this type will have, because the cars are so incredibly similar. No one has any power advantage over the other. In fact, they're talking about advantages of perhaps a mile an hour at top speed. And that doesn't allow anyone to, through money or through a better engine, to have an outright power advantage. But of course, all these manufacturers, with their resources and technology, are continually trying to find perhaps a little bit more bottom end, a little bit more top end, just something that will give them that edge over their rivals. The cars are all, as I said, 2-litre, based around 2-litre production cars, but that's where the similarity ends. Basically, all the chassis are taken direct off the production line. They don't have any of the welding that you'd associate with a road car. They certainly don't have space for stereos and child seats, but they are completely rebuilt. They're specially strengthened, and then the roll cage is put into it, and then all the things that turn them into the high technology race cars that are necessary are added on. The suspension is very, very sensitive, not quite up to Formula One standards, but in these cars with this much roll that you get in the chassis, it's pretty impressive. The gearboxes on all these cars are what we call semi-automatic, in that they're sequential gearboxes, and most of them you do not actually change gear like you would in a regular car. You just slot in, you push a lever forward and pull it back to go up and down the gears. 6-speed boxes, most of them, means for very high tech, very fast, very exciting racing. And that is the Audi of Frank Biella. He is obviously the winner of the first 2 races, and he's making his way up the field. A very wide line there, trying to get the slingshot on the way out, which I think you'll see he's managed, as he goes straight past the Ford there. 2 Audis being that far back, he's not going to want to stay there for too long. I mean, he's in 16th place, he's 1 lap behind. He obviously came into the pits earlier, that was the car we saw, and he's got a point to prove, but sadly I think perhaps too much of one. It is a challenge though for a driver when you've come into the pits, you've just started the race, something's gone wrong, you've dropped back, and then you get back on the field, you know you've got one of the fastest cars out there, and you literally carve your way through the field like a butcher with a knife, giving the Ford a bit of grief. Now that is not the way to go racing when you're carrying half your car. Oh well, good for him. That was reactive marshalling there. The Ford comes through. The Ford of number 7, Boutsen, coming onto the pit straight there. Boutsen's lying in 6th place, right behind Bartels, with the 2 Audis who are quite a way behind. There we go, Johnny Cecotto, we join the leader as he is establishing quite a strong, healthy lead for himself there, and that is the rhythm that he has to keep. Inside the car, the driver you'll be looking at all the dials, you'll be talking to your pits, you're making sure that you can keep everything on an even keel, and of course temperatures, it is pretty hot today, probably around 30 degrees, so therefore everything will start to change, and as you're wearing through your fuel load, with the fuel tank obviously in most of these cars in the rear, the BMW being rear wheel drive front engined, the weight will start to get looser in the back, get lighter, and the car will start to move around a bit more. So as a driver you have to compensate for that. But for Johnny Cecotto that doesn't seem to be too much of a problem. But it is the challenge for driving, because he has actually been able to keep a completely clear mind now since he took the lead. He can concentrate on his own thing, start to make the most out of the car, as are the others behind him, but of course they're not in the lead, so they'll be pushing that little bit harder. The Ford is certainly a lot closer to the back of Peter Cox's car, and I think we could see an overtaking move start to be set up over the next couple of laps. When you're in the lead, you have a lot of things on your mind. Basically, of course, in your mirrors, you can see the car behind seem quite a long way away. But all you have to do is make one mistake, and they can catch you up pretty quickly, and then you have to start racing again. Which, as I said, when you've got all these variations in your car's handling, you don't want that to happen. Peter Cox will have quite a handful on his plate right now, as of course the Ford of Marcus Osterreich starts to pull up on him. He's going to have to start braking later, start using all his brakes and tyres just that little bit harder than he'll want to. And I think you'll probably find the reason that's happening is because of his lack of inexperience in the 2-litre cars, and maybe he made a wrong tyre choice as well, because there's one thing that Peter isn't lacking is pace, and so to drop back like that, and you can see exactly what I mean, the Ford is certainly filling his mirrors. The worst feeling, because literally every time you glance you're looking at the road ahead, but then you see what's happening here. He's setting himself up, he's trying to get faster onto the pit straight here, get in the tow, keep very tidy. You'll see him sucking up on the back of the car before, and that's literally, they've got the same gears, the same power. You can see him sucking back up onto the back of the car. He's going to make his move, he's going to go to the outside, I think you'll find, and then dart down to the inside, or he'll hold out wide and hopefully get the slingshot. He's very, very close. But of course, at that point, Peter Cox will brake very late. You can see Osterreich going out very wide, trying to get a good line through the corner. He's on a tidier line. Peter had to take a defensive line, but I actually think that Peter Cox kept his position rather well there, and perhaps Marcus Osterreich didn't quite make the most of it. He's not giving up though, as we pull down the back straight. Fastest part of the circuit, 6th gear. As you can see from in-car, it is not a straight. There is no such thing as a straight here. Very fast sequences of corners. And as they come back into the braking area before the chicane, and he's made his move, and he's down the inside. Excellent driving from Marcus Osterreich. He's pulled ahead of Peter Cox, so now it's BMW, Ford. Now I think that Osterreich's obviously got the faster car at the moment, and he will continue to chase the BMWs ahead of him. Peter's obviously had to submit to the fact that Osterreich was faster as they come onto the straight, and now is the time to see whether that Ford Mondeo can make its mark felt against the BMWs ahead. But he is quite a few seconds behind. And with that, we will take a break.
Tonight, Holiday Destinations takes off to one of the world's greatest phenomenons, the 7,000 islands that make up the Philippines. From the natural splendor of the outlying islands to the activity and color of the cities, this location is truly a sight to behold. That's Holiday Destinations, tonight at 7:30 on NBC Super Channel.
What happens when you play this set of CDs? These are all the songs that make you feel great when you hear them on the radio. They're on Young at Heart, a collection of all the best singles you never bought. But it's only available from Sounds Direct by post, so get a pen ready. As well as a lot of hits that are no longer available. Remember Buggles, Trio, Nana and Paul Hardcastle? This collection of 60 original hits is only available on a 4-CD set for just $29.99, or 4 cassettes for only $25.99, including postage and packing. To get your copy, call now. Young at Heart from Sounds Direct. Sounds you can't afford to miss.
This fall, join NBC Sports for Notre Dame football. A new season is fast approaching, and with it comes the pageantry, excitement, and thrills of college football's most legendary team, the Fighting Irish. The season kicks off with the game of the year versus arch rival Michigan on September 10th. Notre Dame football coming this fall on NBC.
Welcome back to the Salzburgring. It's now the Ford in 3rd place of Marcus Osterreich, who has done an excellent job. He hounded Peter Cox, who is in his debut outing for BMW here, and he hounded his position and eventually overtook. That is very solid driving. And as we see, Marcus Osterreich will not be content with 3rd place, which of course is a podium finish. If he carries on like this, he will want to make his way up the field. I think he's done very well. He's obviously made very sound tyre choices, and he's mounting the curbs a bit there. He will want to start pulling ahead of Peter Cox a little bit so he can build himself a bit of a cushion. In the distance he can see the other BMWs, which will mean he is certainly not going to settle for 3rd place. Very fast sequence of corners coming up now for the Ford, followed by Peter. As they come through here, they're heading into perhaps a very exciting overtaking opportunity for the man behind. Braking very hard. This is, you can see Peter Cox locking up his brakes. Very tricky to actually be conservative there and stay fast. Running wide on the rumble curbs. No vicious curbing to worry about here. Just the grass, which you don't want to run wide on. Okay, we're looking back out of Marcus Osterreich's car in his Ford Mondeo. And oh, an Audi. It is not Audi's day at the moment. That is number 40, which is Oliver Tichy. He's the young driver brought in to deputise for Hans Stuck this weekend. And so he won't be very happy having gone in the gravel trap. And believe me, once you land in the gravel trap, your race is as good as over. Not a happy guy as he pulls out. We can see why. He went down the inside, locked up brakes, and just was never going to make that move. I'd have to say it would be very, very difficult to apportion blame there. I apologise. That is Capello. Oliver Tichy, you carry on and enjoy your race. Take no notice of what I'm saying. A lot of running around drivers there. That's never a good sign when you're not in your car and the race cars are going by. I'd say Peter Cox is starting to be sandwiched a bit between those two Fords. It's certainly not the race he had in mind, but he will not want to settle for fourth place, and I think he'll want to get back on the podium to complete the BMW 1-2-3. So let's have a quick run down through the top 10. Johnny Cecotto is in the lead, followed by Alfred Hager, Marcus Osterreich, followed by Peter Cox in the other BMW. Bartels is 5th, Terry Boutsen is 6th, and after that things start to drop off a bit because the leaders have certainly pulled out quite a big gap. These Audis haven't given up, as we can see here, fighting very hard to pull back through the field, but if you have fallen out of a 2-litre touring car race and it is only a 22-lap race, you're never going to have a chance to pull back any decent position. The race is just far too close and the cars are too similar to allow anyone to have an opportunity of making up time like that. Oh, he's back on the track. Maybe not in ideal trim. I don't think that's an Audi optional to have your rear bumper hanging on the ground, but he'll probably have to come back in the pits. Your brake calipers are full of gravel, and you're just never too sure. You don't want to end up braking and find that your pedal will not work. Peter Cox has obviously backed off his tyres a little bit, apart from the puff of blue smoke there, Peter. But he's trying to make his move again on Marcus Osterreich. But whilst he's doing that, he might find that, I believe, Terry Boutsen sitting behind will have something to say about it. As they come by. Let's talk a little bit about the Ford sitting behind him. There's Terry Boutsen, who is obviously sussing his way up to try and make a move on Peter Cox. Pardon, that is Bartels sitting behind the BMW, behind Peter Cox, who is, it's very hard to see the numbers on the side of the car in this bright sunshine. And Bartels has obviously been making a steady impression upon the BMW, wanting to join his other Ford teammate up ahead. There is Capello coming into the pits, bits hanging off his Audi. Not a great race for him. Johnny Cecotto is just being so steady, so stable, hasn't set a foot wrong so far in this race. He made his move, he's made the most of that advantage, and is certainly able to keep steady on the road. A very disappointed Capello there. Okay, so Michael Bartels sitting behind Peter Cox, and we're seeing the car now, the view from Osterreich's car, looking backwards. You can see how close they are. Top speed advantage absolutely negligible, but of course there is Peter starting to suck up on the back of the car. That's what you do. Slipstreaming, very, very popular with NASCAR drivers in America. That's the entire basis of all their racing. Looking again once through the front of the car, the fastest section of the circuit, and as we've seen, probably the most popular overtaking point on the track. Well, with that, let's take a break.
World events.
It was more than her.
Welcome back to the Salzburgring, and you are witnessing a BMW sandwich. The BMW, the filling for the two Fords that are certainly giving the debut venue outing for Peter Cox in the BMW a new meaning of close racing. Right now Peter's got a lot on his plate. He wants to obviously get back in the top three, which means he's got to pull ahead of Marcus Osterreich, but right now his position is being threatened from behind by Bartels. And of course, as I think Bartels had a very good slingshot as they came onto the straight there. Slipstreaming very important as they head down onto the start of the long straight. He's making his move down the inside, and we can see what's happening. He's not going to be able to do it. Peter's being very defensive, turning into the right-hander. This is extremely hard on your tyres. What happens is that obviously front-wheel drive for the Ford, rear-wheel drive for the BMW. The driving wheels end up going through a lot more wear and pressure. Oh, look how close that is. He's pushing Peter all over the place. He's trying to go through the inside. Peter is not having any of it. Michael Bartels is a very aggressive driver, very, very successful in his single-seater career, and I think has come along the same route as Peter. And I think they've sparred before somehow. That has actually allowed, obviously, Marcus Osterreich to pull ahead a little bit, but this, and the back of Peter's car is flapping around, full of Ford wind and Ford front end in his mirrors. This is what happens with 2-litre touring car racing. Very exciting. The only way you're going to go by is by making a big move. Peter's braking very late, locking up tyres. It could have affected the handling of his car at the back there. Michael Bartels goes down the inside, has a better line, slingshots him, pulls alongside, and I don't think there's anything Peter Cox is going to be able to do about that. And that is exactly right. Michael Bartels has pulled into 4th place, with Peter Cox having dropped down to 5th. Peter will not be a happy man. I don't think there was anything particularly unfair about the way he was nudged, but it, I think, has affected the handling of his car. He's dropping back. We see it in slow motion. Boom, as they go under braking. That is just not... I mean, that's what happens. Obviously, Peter braked a fraction earlier than Bartels. Bartels was trying to intimidate him a bit into making a mistake, and I think you'll see it had the desired effect as far as the Ford driver is concerned. Marcus Osterreich is managed to pull out a little bit on his own. He'll be very pleased with that. You don't want to have to fight for things in the last few laps of a race. Not the way to go racing, because all your tyres are starting to get a little bit, and that is the checkered flag. My goodness, Johnny Cicotto comes by in the lead. He's won. Alfred Hager second, Marcus Osterreich third. Peter Cox has just lost out at the last lap. That's very, very disappointing for Peter Cox, but I wouldn't be too sad, Peter. You've made a big impression on the touring car crowd here, and Johnny Cicotto has won the 6th round at the Salzburgring of the German 2-litre touring car race. Alfred Hager is second, Marcus Osterreich is third, and unless the positions changed on that last lap, Michael Bartels was fourth, and Peter Cox, who's just dropped down to 5th place. So we're leaving you now from the beautiful Austrian circuit, and we'll see you at the next race.